Now, as you know, we haven't spoken about the Switch 2 at all. Like, not at all on our channel. It's just not something we do unless we have any kind of factual information. In this case, we don't have factual information per se. We've got a Nintendo Switch 2 that's been sent to us 3D printed by a case designer who have all of the plans and blueprints for the Switch 2. And this it's looking pretty legit. Now, they did want us to mention their case, obviously. They're wanting to hopefully get a bit of the, the hype around this thing. And the fact that it also comes shipped with a screen protector. Now, the screen protector itself is pretty large, as you can see. Let's try and focus that camera. That's a pretty large screen protector. If I get the original Switch device and then I place that over the top, you'll see the difference in scale. So there is the Switch OLED. Sorry, the fingerprints are real. But the screen protector of the Switch 2 or Switch successor, it dwarfs the entire unit. If we turn it around on the front, you're looking at a ½ inch on each side of the whole thing. That's how much bigger it is. Now, yeah, they obviously want to get their name out there. The case, let me just show you that. There we go. There it is. Now, they do want to stress that they haven't got the real Switch 2, but that they have had some specs, shall we say, and some other information which has enabled them to 3D print the device. It's not the first time we've seen a 3D print of it. Certainly, it's the first time I have seen a 3D print of it. And yeah, it's looking pretty legit. So let's open it up. Right off the bat, you can see a lot of similarities to what we're used to. If I get the OLED and just plonk it straight down in the middle, it's dwarfed. It's a shame about my lighting, really, but it is dwarfed by the scale of this thing. This is such a nice improvement in terms of scale as far as I'm concerned. Now, we will also have a look at the Steam Deck in comparison to the scale of this, but as you can see, the original Switch OLED is dwarfed by it. Really, it looks small in comparison. If I turn it over, the black on black certainly doesn't help. You might get a better idea. You're looking at about a ½ inch on these two sides and about the same on the bottom as well. You probably can't see this, but the bezel, you can see the bezel there. It's actually almost the same. There's not a huge amount in it really from the Switch OLED, which surprises me. I thought they were going to leave a much bigger bezel. So that's actually really good to know. We'll have a look at the thickness as well, see if it's a thick boy or not. But when we take that out, that fits perfectly inside this case. Like, absolutely perfectly. Let's just look inside the case before we look more at that. You can see the original cart slot sizes here. They are original sizes. You've got this slight indented design on the back because they may have just repurposed the Steam Deck case, but it seems to fit a bit too good, doesn't it? Well, it feels so much like the original Switch OLED, really. And I say the original Switch OLED. It's just the original Switch general language and design. How about the thickness? There's not a great deal in it at all. I don't think there's any significant difference in thickness at all. If I turn them around so that we've got the same side on each one, if I align the ports though, you can really see that size difference. This is with the console starting at the same point. So you have an inch more on the new model, if it is the new model. You've also got a much larger grate for the fans. That's a lot bigger on the top there. Interestingly, the volume buttons are slightly smaller, but if these are correct, they're a little bit easier to press. You can feel them a little easier on the top there. Again, who knows if this is just, if it's going to look anything like that, but that's an interesting one. It's great to see the headphone jack is in the same spot. So we have a headphone jack right on the top here, exactly where it was before, almost 1-for-1 in that regard, maybe slightly over to the right if you were to centralize these. But the game cartridge is looking really promising, isn't it? This, although it is a millimeter larger on the right, I think that's looking likely. It's going to be the same format, isn't it? There are lots of people that were worrying about whether or not they'd change the cartridges up. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't take a larger format card though. That's something that we'll have to see, isn't it? See what they do with that. They could have created a port that accepts both. It is slightly wider, slightly longer. So there, we will see. We will see. I think it's useful to have the comparison of the other device. Now, on the top, the most interesting thing to me is the Type-C port. Now we have seen, I'm going to just angle it, we've seen the Type-C port showcased by the first reveal of the 3D print that was released, and having it on the top is a huge deal. The reason being is in the past, whenever you'd had the unit on the ground, you were going to play like this, you couldn't actually plug in the power. It was just a really bad idea, like just a terrible design. Now you've got both, so I'm guessing we've got a similar dock-in setup. You've got the dock on the bottom and power, and then you've got the top. Now, I wonder if this will also be able to be used as a dock. Now, I'm sure Nintendo's dock won't use it, but whether or not third-party peripherals will, that's a lot more interesting, and it's something that most handheld PCs handheld gaming devices, things like the Steam Deck. That's where theirs is, and hopefully, but it is Nintendo, so if it just charges, then that's absolutely fine. There's quite a bit to say about the Joy-Cons. Let's compare to an original set of Joy-Cons in terms of scale and the feeling of them as well. So scale-wise, I'm using clear ones, so hopefully you'll be able to see a bit better. That gives you a reasonably good idea actually of the size difference. You can almost imagine if I put the screen in the center, that's the difference. So Joy-Cons themselves, well, the original ones are very small for my hands. I think anyone that had hands that were like, I don't know, I won't say normal size, that were a little larger, then you really struggle with those. Now, a couple of things that we have seen in the original preview build actually is this longer curved edge. So although they are larger physically, they have this longer rounded or curved edge all the way around. As for the rear, is exactly the same. So you've got that matching curve on the back, but on the rear, it doesn't seem to be much different from what we're used to. I think that these Joy-Cons have a sharper edge here. You look, it has a sharper edge that comes around. It's still rounded, but it is definitely sharper than the original design. Now, as far as the scale difference of those Joy-Con, yes, they are certainly larger. And one thing I completely forgot to mention when I was recording this is there's obviously the extra button on the right-hand Joy-Con that they've emblazoned a C on, perhaps for capture. Who knows? They're also slightly wider, but not a huge amount, not proportional to the increase of the size of the console. I should imagine Nintendo, there's only so large they want to go with these, but I'm thinking that most people won't have a problem with those. I mean, still they feel quite small. Actually, I can see why they've gone for this. This is a lot more comfortable right over the top there. And then the way that this works around the back just feels very familiar, feels very similar to the original model. I wonder if this design is correct. I mean, I guess that this area here could be slightly recessed. Maybe on the actual model it allows it to come underneath. So I guess there is a way they could do it. But then that wouldn't leave a huge amount of room inside for whatever mechanism or however this works. Yeah, it's all very interesting, isn't it? Obviously we're looking at magnets potentially. This is just stuck onto the side. I'm tempted to see if I can pull it off. I'll end up just breaking it though. So yeah, probably not a good idea doing that. The button placement, again, very similar. Interestingly, look, you can see they've kept these in the same place and then scaled in both directions. The minus button is slightly larger over here, but the capture button that they've used, who knows what capture button, probably not something that their specs would know about. That's exactly the same size. Same goes for the analog sticks here. They've just got a mock-up design. This doesn't work. It's just a piece of plastic. I'm sure it'll just be a Hall sensing joystick in reality. But as far as what I was hoping for the device and, ergonomically, this is exactly what I think most of us want, right? You've got a Switch 2, whatever it's going to be called, Switch successor, that's going to follow the same form factor that we're used to. It's going to feel like a Switch. Anyone's going to pick this up, they're going to know exactly what to do. Perhaps there'll be a few little quirks in terms of magnetic Joy-Cons, things like that. But they've also said all of your games will run on it. Now it's looking like the cart slot is the same form factor. Who knows what they'll do there, but it seems like a very odd decision if your games don't run on it. So I'm sure that's going to work. And then I was talking to someone in the comments about the backwards compatibility and what that means. They were saying that, it doesn't necessarily mean that all of your games are going to perform better. Now I think in the Switch story is a bit different to other platforms. I would argue that actually it does mean that your games are going to perform better. It's already been shown with modified hardware that you can essentially have your current gen games run better, even if they're not going at a higher clock rate. So say the game's targeting 30 frames per second and it runs at 23 on the current Switch. Even without any modifications, just running that at faster clocks means it will hit that 30 more consistently. It also means that most of these games, take Stray that just came out, they use dynamic resolution scaling, and on the current gen Switches, the visual just dies. When you hit a massive area, you really see how it's struggling. With the right hardware underneath it, those areas may run close to native resolution. So even without a massive bump in frame rate, just the smoothness, we should see a big increase in visual quality with current generation Nintendo Switch games, particularly ones and things like the Unreal 4 engine that struggle as it is. Yeah, we should see a big improvement across the board. Now here is where Nintendo are flexing, in my opinion. Let's just get this thing focusing. The camera's not happy with life. Here's a Steam Deck, right? When Valve spoke about the design of it, they spoke about ergonomics. They said this was going to be the most ergonomic thing ever. And don't get me wrong, it's a very comfortable device to use. Arguably more comfortable than the Switch, with its rear buttons, with its Hall sensing. Oh, it hasn't got those, but I've installed them. And its little touch pads. It is a comfortable device, albeit a very heavy one. Now, the flex for Nintendo, if this is legit, is that it's bigger and smaller. you're looking at a much bigger screen. Like, I know there's the OLED model of the Steam Deck is out, but even the OLED model doesn't come close to the size that this thing's going for. Like, this is, again, quite set, like the bezel goes all the way to here on my model. So you're looking at, if I just line the screens up, and I know you won't be able to see it, that's the edge of the screen there. You're looking at a 1/2 inch extra on the side, and maybe a little larger the other way, which is a big increase. So potentially we're looking at a lighter, larger screen. Does it feel more ergonomic? I don't think, I'm not sure. I guess it depends what kind of hands you've got. It certainly feels more ergonomic than the first one. The way that this hits the center of my palm and the way that you kind of wrap around this edge, I can see why they've given you that ever so slightly sharper but still curved edge. And actually it's worth mentioning the front. So I don't think I said this. If I move this out of the way, the original Joycon is a completely flat on the front, essentially. You know, it's straight up and down, as flat as you like. This one, and this is going to be so difficult to show if I can get an angle on this. Let's move this out of the way. It kind of tapers off. So it kind of tapers off down like this. You see that? See if I can just focus on there. So white is not easy, is it, to see? Maybe you can see it on the edge, but it just slightly tapers off. So it's like got a curve to it. Now, obviously ergonomically, that's not going to do a great deal for your precision on the analogs and things like that. But with that sharp edge, it just kind of, no pun intended, takes the edge off the sharpness, gives you a little rounding into it, even albeit quite large. And then you've got that slightly rounded edge. It's not totally sharp. It's a really nice refinement. Like, as far as what I wanted, this is exactly it. If these were analog, this is perfect. If they're not, it's a big missed opportunity in my opinion, but not the end of the world. Still, we need some love for those racing games. Now, that's really my thoughts on the design. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments. If you'd like to see another video with this device, then I'm sure we can do something. As I say, we don't do speculation videos. Like, we haven't done any clickbaity, like, huge Nintendo Switch 2 news. Like, just doesn't interest me at all. But this does interest me. This has come from a peripheral manufacturer who have clearly designed a case based on this. And let's just finish by zipping it away in its case. And in however many months, we will see if this turns out to be right. There you go. They've got their case right in the middle of the shop. And I mean, you're not making this, you're not going to produce these surely, unless you know, right? Very nicely designed case. So yeah, if they ever send me those links, I'll pop them in the description. Who knows, the ninjas might have fired something at them. But yeah, it's just a 3D model, so no need for any ninja action. But I think it's quite an interesting little look at the potential there. And if they've gone for a correct weight, I'm sure they haven't, but just off the top of my head, it does weigh slightly less than a Steam Deck, but quite a bit more than the current Switch OLED. So that's it really for today. As I say, thank you to the manufacturer of the case for providing us with the demo unit to just get hands-on with the Switch. Hopefully this has been of use to you. And as I say, let me know in the comments if you want to see any other part of it. I think I've shown everything, or if you want any other side-by-side comparisons. Thank you to all of you that enjoy the content, to our Patreons, our members, for all things Switch, all the time. Keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!